Good morning, students. Here we are going on with Hearts and Hands, that is story number 4, okay, by O. Henry. O. Henry is an American writer. His stories are well known for the humor, for the surprise ending, all these things. And this also, Hearts and Hands, gives us a surprise ending. It describes about a chance, an encounter which is on the train where Mr. Easton and Miss Fairchild, like Miss Fairchild was knowing about Mr. Easton, she was acquaintance to Mr. Easton. Suddenly in the train she saw him, she started talking to him, and Mr. Easton gave all the wrong impression about himself as he was handcuffed. There was a grim faced man who was the marshal, or you can say the inspector, police, whatever you can call. So he was with him, and Mr. Easton was handcuffed, but he never wanted to embarrass himself in front of Miss Fairchild, so he called himself to be the marshal and that grim faced man to be the prisoner. So, this way, Miss Fairchild started talking to Mr. Easton, and she did not identify that what was going on. So, the man who was the grim faced man, he understood the situation, and to save Mr. Easton from this embarrassment, he also helped Mr. Easton to go on with the same thing. But the two passengers who were there above watching them, they understood that who is the prisoner and who is the marshal. So let us see this story. It starts like this. At Denver, there was an influx of passengers into the coaches on the eastbound B&M Express. Now Denver is in USA, Colorado. There was an influx means there were arrival of large number of people. I have written here meaning also, you can go through it. Arrival of large number of passengers into the coaches on the eastbound B&M Express. What was the train name? B&M Express. In one coach there sat a very pretty young woman dressed in elegant taste and surrounded by all the luxurious comforts of an experienced traveler. Means a very pretty young woman was sitting there, very elegantly dressed and with all the luxurious comfort. Among the newcomers were two young men, one of handsome presence with a bold, frank countenance means the facial expression and manner. The other a ruffled, glum-faced person, heavily built and roughly dressed. The two were handcuffed together. So in the first para, what the author is telling, one lady was sitting, very young, very pretty lady, dressed elegantly. Then two young men entered. Out of that, one was very handsome, very bold, very frank, very good facial expression, good manner. Second one was very depressed, very rough, very heavily built, very roughly dressed. But the thing was same in both, that both were handcuffed. Handcuff, you know, no? Yes, that is the police, when they catch the prisoner, they handcuff them. So both were handcuffed. As they passed down the aisle of the coach, the only vacant seat offered was a reversed one facing the attractive young women. Now, as they entered, only one seat was there vacant, that was just opposite of this young attractive lady. Here, the linked couple seated themselves. Now, both were handcuffed, so they were linked together. They seated themselves. The young woman's glance fell upon them with a distant, swift disinterest, then with a lovely smile brightening her countenance and a tender pink tingling her rounded cheeks. Now, what happened? This lady slowly started identifying one of them, and she had a very beautiful smile on her face. The expression, then her means her tender pink tindering her means the cheeks were like little pinkish. And then what she did, she held out a little grey gloved hand. When she spoke, her voice, full, sweet and deliberate mean extended, announced, proclaimed that its owner was accustomed to speak and be heard. And this way she just opened her mouth, she started to speak, and her voice was so sweet, so tender, and she wanted to know, like she started just talking to them. Well, Mr. Easton, if you will make me speak first, I suppose I must. Don't you ever recognize old friends when you meet them in the West? Now, Miss Fairchild said, Mr. Easton, if you make me to speak first, I would like to tell you that don't you ever recognize your friends when you meet them anywhere else. So you don't recognize me. The younger man roused himself sharply at the sound of her voice, seemed to struggle with a slight embarrassment, which he threw off instantly, and then clasped her fingers with his left hand. Now, what happened? The younger man he was so excited that such a beautiful girl, and slowly he identified her. So, then what happened? He was embarrassed because he was handcuffed, but still he just came over from his embarrassment and just he claps her fingers with his left hand, which was free. It's Miss Fairchild, he said with a smile. He said, are you Miss Fairchild? I will ask you to excuse the other hand. It's otherwise engaged just at present. He said, I'll ask you to excuse my other hand. Means my one hand is handcuffed, so please excuse me. And he recognized her. He slightly raised his right hand, bound at the wrist by the shining bracelet, to the left one of his companion. Now, what happened? He slightly raised his right hand, which was bound at the wrist of the shining bracelet, means that handcuff, to the left one of his companion. The glad look in the girl's eyes slowly changed to a bewildered horror. Now, when this girl looked at the handcuff, she was a little bit confused. She was not knowing that who is the prisoner here. The glow faded from her cheeks. When she had that look on the handcuff, suddenly that happiness, that glow which was coming to Miss Fairchild looking at Mr. Easton, it just vanished. Her lips parted in a vague, relaxing distress. She was not clear. She wanted to ask many things, but she couldn't. Easton, with a little laugh as if amused, was about to speak again when the other force told him. Now what happened? Now he gave a little laugh and he wanted to speak again when the other one stopped him from speaking. The glum-faced man had been watching the girl's countenance with veiled glances from his keen, shrewd eyes. Now the glum-faced man, who was real Marshall, he was watching the girl's expression, and he understood now girl is like little bit confused that what is really the matter, and he observed her. You will excuse me for speaking, miss, but I see you are acquainted with the marshal here. Now what happened? What he said? Excuse me for speaking. Now this real marshal said to Miss Fairchild, please excuse me, but you are familiar with the marshal here. Means this glum-faced man called Mr. Easton the marshal. Actually, who was the marshal or who was the police? This glum-faced man. But he understood the girl really had some expression for a feeling for Mr. Easton, so he never wanted to make Mr. Easton embarrassed. So he said, excuse me from speaking, but he is the marshal. If you will ask him to speak a word for me when we get to the pen, he will do it. He said, if you will ask him to speak anything for me, then there is a small place that is confinement, and he will do it, and it will make things easier for me there. He is taking me to Leavenworth prison. It's 7 years for counterfeiting. He said he is taking me to Leavenworth prison. He is taking me to prison, and for counterfeiting means for forgery. I have done a forgery, and 7 years I will be. 7 years for counterfeiting. 7 years means I have to be in the prison, and I have done the forgery. Oh, said the girl with a deep breath and returning color. So that is what you are doing out here, a marshal. Now what happened? The glum-faced man made everything clear that Mr. Easton is the marshal and he is taking me to the prison, and I have done the forgery. But actually these all thing was done by whom? Mr. Easton. But this marshal saved him from embarrassment. My dear Miss Fairchild, said Easton calmly, I had to do something. Now Mr. Easton again little bit he what you can say, he little bit became very proud. He said, yes, I had to do something. Money has a way of taking wings into itself. He said, money is like that. When you want to get money, you have to put up the wings. And you know it takes money to keep step with our crowd in Washington. I saw this opening in the West, and well, a marshalship isn't quite as high a position as that of ambassador. I said, Marshalship, I know it's not high. That's high, that is of ambassador. But the ambassador, said the girl warmly, doesn't call any more. He needn't ever have done so. You ought to know that, and so now you are one of these dashing Western heroes. He said, oh, you are now the dashing Western hero, you are the marshal. And you ride and shoot and go into all kinds of danger. He said, you do all kind of dangers. Means you catch the prisoners, you take them, you shoot, you face all kind of danger. That's different from the Washington life. You have been missed from the old crowd. He said, you have been missed the old crowd, and that is different from all the life you lived in Washington. The girl's eyes, fascinated, went back, widening a little to rest upon the glittering handcuff. Now, the girl was really fascinated and was really excited to hear his stories, and but her eyes was on the handcuff. Now he said, don't you worry about them, miss, said the other man. Now other man, this is glum face man, said, don't worry about this. All marshals handcuff themselves to their prisoners to keep them from getting away. Now glum faced was very observing man. He was observing the girl and he understood that her eyes is still on the handcuff. He said, miss, don't worry, it is the duty of the marshal to handcuff the prisoners with themselves. Otherwise the prisoner will run away. Mr. Easton knows his business. He is a very good man. He knows his work. Will we see you again soon in Washington? Asked the girl. The girl said, will you come back to Washington? Not soon, I think, said Easton. My butterfly days are over. Butterfly days means my good days. That is over. I fear. I love the West, said the girl irrelevantly. Now, the girl said, I love the West. Her eyes were shining softly. Now, girl was like so happy that my old friend I got, and he is in such a good post. According to her, what she heard from the glum faced man, that Mr. Easton is at good post. She looked away out the car window. She began to speak truly and simply without the gloss of style and manner. Mama and I spent the summer in Denver. She went home a week ago because father was slightly ill. He said, me and my mother, we were in Denver, but my father was ill. She went to the house. I could live and be happy in the West. I think the air her agrees with me. Money isn't everything, but people always misunderstand things and remain stupid. Now she wanted that Mr. Easton should be here in the same place. So she said, money is not everything. People always misunderstand it and remain stupid. But for me, money is not everything. I have to see all the other things too. Say, Mr. Marshall, growled the glum-faced man. Growled means very angrily. This isn't quite fair. I am needing a drink and haven't had a smoke all day. I said, I want a drink and I did not even smoke. Haven't you talked long enough? Take me in the smoker now, won't you? I am half dead for a pipe. Now what happened? Now this glum-faced man angrily told Mr. Marshall that, see, I need a drink, I need a smoke. Please take me to the smoker room, and I am half dead. Now I hope your talk is over. The bound traveler rose to their feet, Easton with the same slow smile on his face. Now they stood up, and Easton with the same smile looked at the girl. I can't deny a petition for tobacco, he said lightly. It's the one friend of the unfortunate. Goodbye, Miss Fairchild. Duty calls, you know. He held out his hand for a farewell. I said, see, Miss Fairchild, I am going, and duty calls me, and I will see you again. It's too bad you are not going east, she said, reclothing herself with manner and style. She again said, but it's very bad you are not going to the east. But you must go on to Leavenworth, I suppose. But she said, but you must go to Leavenworth, I suppose it. Yes, said Easton, I must go on to Leavenworth, because Mr. Easton is actually going to Leavenworth prison and he is going to be there for 7 years confinement. Okay, so she said, but you should go to Leavenworth, because according to her, he is going there for the work. Yes, said Easton, I must go on to Leavenworth. The two men stirred down the ale into the smoker. Now the two men moved down. The two passengers in a seat nearby had heard most of the conversation. Now what happened? When this conversation was going on, two passengers were sitting there only, and they were hearing all the conversation and they were observing them. Said one of them, the marshal's a good sort of chap. He said the marshal is a good one. He's a good fellow. Some of these Western fellows are all right. He said some of these Western fellows are really all right. Pretty young to hold an office like that, isn't he? Asked the other. He said, pretty young to hold an office like this. Hey, so young to be means to be the marshal. Young, exclaimed the first speaker. Why, oh, didn't you catch on? The first one said, young, didn't you catch? Say, did you ever know an officer to handcuff a prisoner to his right hand? He said, did you ever see an officer who will handcuff his prisoner to his right hand? So what was this? That Mr. Easton's right hand was handcuffed to the marshal's left hand. Okay, so actually the marshals, if Mr. Easton was a marshal, his left hand should be handcuffed. They always keep their left hand to be handcuffed and right hand free. But here, Mr. Easton's right hand was cuffed to the marshal's left hand. When both men were right-handed, clearly the marshal would choose to cuff his non-dominant hand to the prisoner's dominant one. Because it always happen, it is the very light observation that when a police is catching a prisoner and handcuffed to the prisoner, then police left hand will be there and the prisoner's right hand will be there, because police has to use his right hand. But here Mr. Easton's right hand was there and that glum faced man left hand was there. So there the passenger observed that actually the glum faced man was the marshal and Mr. Easton was the prisoner. But to make that girl, the girl didn't understand that, to make her confused or to make Mr. Easton not to embarrass in front of that girl, so the marshal was a good man. He made his dignity there of Mr. Easton, and he just made the thing opposite, telling Mr. Easton is the marshal and he is the prisoner. So all this conversation was going on. Miss Fairchild did not identify this, but the two passengers who were observing and listening to their conversation, they understood and they finally understood what was the real matter. So this way the author O. Henry gave a surprising ending to the story, that whom from the beginning the people were thinking to be the marshal, he was actually not the marshal but he was the prisoner. Okay, I hope you understood.